today. And I welcome especially our guests from Japan who have joined us. Welcome. And as you know, our speakers today are Pat Elder, Rachel Clark, and Marguerite Adelman. I've asked each of them as they begin to speak to please introduce themselves, and then they will begin their presentation. So Rachel, would you like to, Pat, excuse me, would you like to begin?
Sure, I appreciate that. My name is Pat Elder, and I tested foam on my beach here in St. Mary's County, and have found 1,500, 5,500, and 6,600 parts per trillion in 3 different successive tests. And I have been completely ignored by state officials and the Navy. And that's what got me into this. The foam came to me, so to speak, and so I've been on this for several years as military poisons, and I appreciate the opportunity to address this matter.
Pat, excuse me for breaking in. I would just like to ask everyone on this webinar to please put in the chat your name, where you live, and the organization you might be affiliated with. Thank you very much. Excuse me, Pat.
Sure. So maybe Rachel start sharing and we can begin.
Maybe after introduction?
Up to Nancy.
Nancy.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Rachel, you're next. You're going to, are you speaking first or was Pat?
I'd say it seems like a Pat's introduction is done, right?
Yes. Okay, Rachel, please.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Clark. First of all, thank you so much for having me over here together with Pat. And I'm so excited to see some of our Japanese friends as an audience, and they were a major powerhouse for this past tour in 3 weeks. The very beginning of this tour was actually 2015. Dud Hendrick, who is among the audience, he was one of the 10 delegations from Veterans for Peace to Okinawa. And I was there as one of the 10, but mainly my job was interpreter. And whole week, Okinawans media was chasing after us all over, and it was great. We assisted, we worked together with local anti-base movement and everything. But mainland Japan ignored this completely. And I felt, wait a minute, this is not Okinawan issue. This is a huge issue of US and Japan relationship, especially the Stated Forces Agreement, SOFA. This is very unfair, and Okinawan has been holding the ramifications between the, huge gap between this SOFA and Article 9, which renounces war. This is like an oxymoron situation. So I thought it's about a time to galvanize mainland people. Then I started this speaking tour 2016 together with a couple of US veterans, talking about the reality of war to the people who never engaged in combat situation more than 70 years. So the information of the war that they've been receiving is about more like a romanticized and something, superhero type of war, image of war, but reality is totally different. So that's the kind of tour that I started. Then I started to see Pat Elder's group email talking about the PFAS. It seems like I received the original one a couple years ago, but I didn't pay that much attention. For some reason, one day I read one of his articles and said, wait a minute, this is something very serious matter. So I volunteered to translate it into Japanese, and I sent it back to him, and he kept sending me more and more articles like a machine gun. And I thought, hey, this is very important matter, not only for us, but also all across the globe, wherever they host the US military bases. they do have this PFAS issue. And I thought this is a great opportunity for me to knock on the door of people who never paid attention of a military issue. But PFAS, this is a health issue, right? That is undiscriminately comes to everybody's environment. So I thought this is great starting to tour around with Pat. That's how we started this year. And thanks to Professor Sakurai here and Ms. Ogawa and Ms. Ryoko, Yamaguchi, and so many other colleagues in Japan, they were wholeheartedly welcomed our visit and prepared events, all different parts of Japan. I'm so glad that I was given this opportunity to what we've done in Japan together with Pat. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rachel. Hello, Marguerite. We'd love to hear from you. Yes.
I'm Marguerite Adelman. I live in Winooski, Vermont, and I am the coordinator of the Vermont PFAS Military Poisons Coalition. I began my work, interestingly enough, at the time that the F-35s were going to become stationed at the Vermont the Burlington International Airport, right next to Winooski, and scheduled to fly over our small refugee resettlement community, which is one of the poorer cities in the state of Vermont, and became very concerned about, what that would mean to us. At the same time, I wrote a grant for Pat Elder and for WILPF US Earth Democracy Committee to bring Pat on a tour of California. And it was about PFAS, and I hadn't heard of it at that time. And like you, Rachel, when I started reading about it and learning about it, I became exceptionally concerned. I started looking at the amount of PFAS that we have being released from the Vermont Air National Guard base right here next to my community, and was absolutely shocked. And then I looked at past places I've lived in Plattsburgh, New York, where they just closed a former Air Force base, which is a super fun site. And I taught in Rantoul, Illinois, which was another closed Air Force base, which was a super fun site. And I became really shocked at how much exposure we have to something that we had not a clue about, and kind of have committed myself to educate around this topic and to do it for my grandchildren, because while I'm older and probably am not going to see the effects as much on myself, I worry about future generations.
Thank you, Marguerite. So now we'll begin hearing from Pat and then Rachel and then Marguerite. Thank you, Pat. Would you like to begin?
Okay. Rachel, you want to share the screen and we'll
Yes.
get going here?
Hold on.
That's it.
Wait a minute. Let me try to set the start the play. Okay. What? Just 1 second. Sorry, I need to play this. Okay. Hold on. I'm sorry. Where is the presentation mode?
The play at the top bar. Go to the
This
right.
one.
Yes.
This one. No, I've been clicking
I
this
think it
one.
would be on the
doesn't work.
bar on the.
This one. Play slideshow.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great. And, my apologies to a few of our Japanese colleagues who have already seen some of this. We'll get to the newer results, hopefully toward the end. But I just want to take my quick 10, 12 minutes here to address, where PFAS comes from on U.S. bases, because after touring Japan, I came to the realization that the Japanese people seem to be convinced that PFAS comes from firefighting foam and not much else, and that the real problem is from drinking water and not any other types of environmental contamination. So I'd just like to take a quick look at where PFAS comes from and make the point that U.S. military activities are not compatible with human health. Go ahead, Rachel. So where does it come from? You can read the 10: fire training areas, foam suppression systems, chrome plating, wash racks, sewer drains, landfills, leachate, wastewater treatment plants, air and dust pollution, incineration, and air stripping towers. Go ahead, Rachel. So let's address each one. We all are pretty darn familiar with the fire training areas at this point. I mean, at least since the early 70s. The earliest spot is actually near where I live at the Naval Research Lab, Chesapeake Bay Detachment. Since 1968, they've been using PFAS there, and there is over 8 million parts per trillion of PFAS in the subsurface soils 35 feet down. So this is still sinking, but the carcinogens were allowed to drain, and they've contaminated the groundwater, the soil, and surface water, and the chemicals are still there. They just don't go away. Next slide, please. They also come from overhead suppression systems. This is a shot of Dover Air Force Base. I actually tried to enlist the support of Vice President Biden at the time. This is his home town here, or close to it, Dover, Delaware. But this is a heck of a shot. I believe Dover has over 2.2 million parts per trillion in some parts of its groundwater. But the suppression systems often malfunction. Sometimes they would test them monthly, and so these foams were allowed to escape into the environment. Next slide, please. PFAS also comes from chrome plating operations. Now, chrome plating is a process by which metal parts are submerged into a solution of hexavalent chromium, and CR6 is the abbreviation, and it allows the metal pieces to be hardened and to be able to resist great heat that they might encounter in a jet engine. So the PFAS is used as a kind of suppression of the fumes. The fumes are deadly, they're carcinogenic. Pour PFAS into the mixture and it creates a kind of envelope, and it's very effective. The problem is what to do with the stuff when we're done from a work day. And so really, for the most part, U.S. forces have sent these down the oil water separator to wastewater treatment plants, or they've been able to escape straight to outflows to surface waters. Next slide, please. PFAS also comes from wash racks. Well, nothing cleans quite as well as PFAS. And so jet engine parts and tank engine parts and other types of engine parts are cleaned with PFAS, and it's the same dynamic. And I saw this photograph of Eglin Air Force Base in 2015, and I thought, well, what the heck? I'll look it up. So I got the site inspection from Eglin Air Force Base, and sure enough, 552,200 parts per trillion of PFOS, PFOA in groundwater in 2019. Of course. Next slide, please. PFAS comes from sewer drains on base. Accidents and routine maintenance, send the stuff right down the drain. And, the carcinogens are carried in pipes, discharged, and from there, PFAS settles in sludge and liquids. And this is a truth I found that many in Japan and certainly in Maryland had no idea about. And so we are slowly, along with others, awakening public awareness here regarding the importance of the drains and the wastewater treatment plants. Next slide, please. PFAS certainly comes from landfills and leachate, toxic dumps. The landfills are toxic dumps, and I've likened it to like a giant coffee maker. So you take all kinds of industrial equipment and you crush it with the great big bulldozers, and you allow the rains to come in the landfills, and the liquid underneath we call the leachate. Sometimes it is recklessly allowed to drain directly into surface waters, but other times it's piped to wastewater treatment plants. What happens is what we've seen too in Hawaii at Kunia Village in particular. That's quite the study, Kunia Village, Kunia, Hawaii, where the privately owned wastewater treatment facility that serves 5 Army bases treats the sewage and treats the leachate and treats these carcinogens through the wastewater treatment plant. Actually, it leaves the PFAS intact, and so often this water is used for irrigation purposes, not so much for drinking water, but still the result is the same. I mean, the crops are contaminated, and the waters are allowed to leach into the aquifers. Next slide, please. Wastewater treatment plants. We have evaporation ponds, sludge beds, and land application of sludge, and they all deliver PFAS to the environment. It's part of it that I never really understood, but there was a study by the CDC, the ATSDR, 3 years ago in West Virginia, and they documented dust in people's homes adjacent to the Air National Guard base, and found 16 million parts per trillion of PFH excess and 13 million parts per trillion of PFOS in the dust of people's homes. And that's because the PFAS lines the beds of creeks. It is in the evaporation ponds and sludge beds, gets into the air, it is driven by the wind, and it winds up in our lungs, and it winds up in our homes. And so we must rediscover ways to clean our homes. We've got to change our air filters more frequently. We can't be dusting and cleaning the way we've always done. Swiffer may be the thing of the future, right? Next slide, please. Okay, this is an extremely important slide because it shows exactly what we're talking about here. If you look at the red X and you look at the black circle next to the red X, you'll see that the spike in the amount of PFOS. We'll just look at that. Now, the blue line is a stream, and the stream meanders from the old fire training area at the Chesapeake Bay, the Naval Research Labs, Chesapeake Bay Detachment. The people in this vicinity are absolutely oblivious. I teamed up with a half a dozen of us. We went door to door. We were not treated too well. In fact, we were even chased out of one neighborhood. They didn't want to hear anything about it. The town was not happy with our presence. And we just simply had, one message, which was that you've got big time PFAS contamination. You should be aware of it and be mindful of your own health. But if you look at this closely, the PFAS is draining from the site, and PFOS contains 137 parts per trillion. It heads southward down to the bottom right, passes the discharge, the outflow from the wastewater treatment plant, and spikes to 1,230 parts per trillion. Here's proof from the Navy. This is a Navy graphic that this is where a lot of the contamination takes place. Now, we tested about 800 feet south of here, where the water actually empties into the Chesapeake Bay. Whole other story. We found 6,000 parts per trillion draining into the bay. So the 1230 here is probably a little bit off the mark, but the Navy at least is showing an 8-fold increase in the amount of PFOS in the waters draining. And of course, a spike in the PFOA as well. But in this context, This is just 800 feet from the banks of the Chesapeake Bay. We're mostly concerned with PFOS because of its propensity to bioaccumulate. Next slide, Rachel, please. And I alluded to this earlier, these toxins coat the banks, the sun dries the banks. And, this was a graphic I kind of knew, that Misawa Air Base would have some super high levels. And sure enough, we tested the water not too far from here. And our team was able to show contamination of more than 1,250 parts per trillion of PFAS draining from the burn pit at the Misawa Air Base into the Misawa River. Next slide, please. Putting lipstick on a pig. The PFAS is incinerated, and we know, from our colleague in Bennington, and Marguerite, you may want to pipe in. What is the guy's name in Bennington, Vermont? He deserves a shout out. I can't remember right now. There's a professor in Bennington, Vermont. Marguerite, do you know? What's his name?
Give me a minute. I'll think.
Yeah. I can't. So the guy took his undergraduate class and examined the soils downwind of of an incineration facility where PFAS he knew was being incinerated, and found high levels of PFAS in soil downstream. And so we also had a study in Vermont that was done that showed a couch and a chair and a carpet together were cut into little swaths and tested, and had more than a million parts per trillion in the landfill. And so all of that, it either is going to find itself into surface waters eventually, or it's going to be incinerated and it will find itself into the water. Bottom line is the stuff doesn't break down. Can't burn it, you can't bury it. We got a big problem. Next slide, please. Airstripping towers, something few people know a great deal about, but I'm convinced that in several areas of pineapple plantations where we have sick people in Hawaii, and I think a lot of it had to do with the airstripping towers. And so these are remarkable technology that can treat toxins, VOCs. And so if water, say, is contaminated with trichloroethylene, it can be cleaned out with these airstripping towers. But with the PFAS is simply spread in an aerosol fashion. So these are part of the problem around the country. Next slide, please. And I think I'm getting close. I'll take this last one. I think John Mitchell's done a great deal of work in Japan, just showing the extent of PFAS contamination by filing and receiving Freedom of Information Act requests. I'm going to hand it over to Rachel now, and thank you so much for your attention.
All right.
Thank you very much, Pat. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. So can people hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay,
can.
lovely. I'll go to the next slide. So the food is more contaminated than the water, like Pat said before. Okay, the Japanese public is slow to accept the notion that municipal drinking water comprises a small part of the PFAS we consume. Contaminated food, especially the fish we eat, poses a much greater threat to our health than the drinking water. Why is that? You're going to understand with the following slides. So please take a look at this. Okay, the drinking water is dangerous in many areas. Professor Koji Harada, who is wholeheartedly working on PFAS issue together with Professor Koizumi of Kyoto University and Professor Harada and Tokyo Shimbun, it's one of the major newspapers in Tokyo area, tested drinking water in Kanagawa Prefecture, which is outskirts of Tokyo, and found 8 locations with the concentrations of PFOS and PFOA exceeding Japan's non-enforceable target of 50 parts per trillion PPT. And one location had drinking water at 301 PPT. The US EPA has instituted interim level for PFOS to 0.02 PPT and the PFOA 0.004 PPT in drinking water. So the levels of carcinogens in Tokyo's water may be up to 75,000 times over the unenforced US threshold. So take a look at this. This is a Tama River, which is one of the major rivers run through Tokyo area. So contaminated surface water threatens public health. The contamination of surface waters in Japan poses the greatest threat to public health, while most attention is fixed on PFAS in drinking water. So random surface water results were done. I'm not gonna read one by one, but you can see the number, like a 12,900 PBT, 249, 59. Misawa, I think Pat showed you several slides prior to this, and the river near base shows that 2,000, more than 2,000 PPT. The Tama River, Joryu sewage plant, 440 PPT. Tama River also runs through Tokyo, and it's near Yokota base. Kadena is in Okinawa, and Kadena's town hall pond contains 90,000. 90,000. This Kadena Air Base has been there for a long time, one of the major Air Force bases in Asia. The Dakujak River, which runs near Kadena, also had high level. Futenma is also high level. Camp Hansen, 300. Camp Courtney, 87,000 PPT. So Okinawa has a very serious issue with very severe contamination by PFAS. So going back to Okinawa's comment, I would like to mention that why this Okinawa has been suffering so much when it comes to PFAS. It was already revealed high level of contamination in 2016 for last 7 years, despite the very hard work on local people. The U.S. military bases does not allow them to come inside the base to do an on-site investigation. And why they keep refusing, and it is legally okay to do so, is because of the SOFA, Status of Forces Agreement between U.S. and Japan. And especially the Article 3.1, which refers to exclusive control of U.S. forces, which means that basically they can use U.S. bases as if it were U.S. own territory. It's completely off limit from local Japanese authorities. So in this situation, that tells you Japan is not an independent nation, although it's supposed to be, right? It's been still more than 70 years. It's been kind of a vassal country, vassal nation of the United States. That's the reality. So random surface water results is like this, and anywhere across Japan, they tested let's see, 18 rivers, starting from Hokkaido, the northern tip of a big island, and Tohoku, Kanto, Hokuriku, which is Chubu, Kinki, Chugoku. These are mainland island, and Shikoku, another big island, and Kyushu, another big island, found PFAS in all of them. Okay, so in this picture, the river looks so pretty and quiet and nice and everything, but actually the water itself could be heavily contaminated with PFAS. So this is one of the most important slides of Pat's presentation. Why do these surface water concentrations mean? So take a look at the photo. You see the big fish? It says 92.3 ppb. B means billion, parts per billion. And took a look at the water where this fish lives is 53.3 ppt, parts per trillion. All right. So there's a difference between ppb and the ppt, with 1,000 times more. We need to do adjustment of the unit. So 92.3 ppb is in ppt 92,300 ppt. So let's compare these numbers. 92,300 ppt, and the water itself is 53.3 ppt, which means that fish is more than 1,700 times contaminated than its water where it lives. So this is the case of a bioaccumulation. Okay. And also we have to mention that every species is unique. For example, some species live very close to the water surface, or midsection of the river, or at the bottom of the river. And every PFAS compound is unique also. For example, some PFAS just floating on the surface of the water, or somewhere closer to the surface, or in the midsection, or accumulate like a sediment at the bottom of the bottom of the river. So it depends what kind of a combination or environmental conditions accumulate more PFAS or less PFAS. So we need to study more. But anyway, as you can see in this photo, the fish is more dangerous. It's much highly contaminated than the water where it lives. So for example, 1 ppt pollution on the water could mean like several hundred ppt or several thousand ppt. So water and fish contamination results, test results are like this. I'm not going to read everything, but take a look at this. They measured fish's liver and blood, and those samples were taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts in Japan, including mainland and Okinawa. And look at the number of zeros. It's okay. So Japan had a target of 50 parts per trillion for PFAS and P4 combined in drinking water, but way over 50, thousands of levels are shown here. So we really need to focus on contamination, PFAS issue in Japan, all across Japan. And unfortunately, there's a Kin Bay, which is a Kin town in Okinawa. Oh my God, this is was 7,900,000 ppt, and 3,250,000 ppt. Okay, so this kind of number is really threatening the severe health issue. So let's go back to our nation, the United States of anxiety. Lesson from Michigan. Michigan tested 2,841 fish, and the average fish had 80,000 ppt of PFAS. Michigan mandates that water service providers must keep PFAS under 16 ppt, just for the drinking water. But there's absolutely no regulation of fishing. So people can fish no matter how heavily contaminated, and they can eat it, whereas they're not supposed to drink contaminated water. So they do need to regulate water. And for example, fish near Wordsmouth Air Force Base had 10 million ppt in its fish fillet. Okay, which is 500 million times over the EPA advisory for the water. This is just outrageous numbers, but that's going on in this country. Lesson from Maryland, where Pat lives. A pregnant woman, take a look at this lady, very young, but she is definitely pregnant and holding a big, largemouth bass. And Maryland has a fish advisory for Piscataway Creek that drains Joint Base Andrew. Okay, Joint Base Andrew is where Air Force One is. A largemouth bass from the creek contained 94,200 ppt of PFAS in fillet. The state says it's okay to eat 3 servings of these fish monthly. No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't agree with the state of Maryland. And, Pat wrote here, Maryland has a fish advisory for Piscataway Creek after working on hundreds of cases of different parts of Maryland. This is only a single regulation that they gained, but still, the state allows people to fish and eat 3 servings of these fish per month, which is ridiculous. And the food in Japan is also contaminated with PFAS. This is the result of other products than fish. Chicken liver, 67,000 ppt. Pig livers, 54,000 ppt. Cattle had 34,000 ppt. Dogs were found to have 25,000 ppt of PFAS and 10 ppt of PFHXS in their blood, making them as diseases as human. Well, the dog pet food is also another issue, but take a look at this chart here. The red arrow shows that the higher level of PFAS based on the kind of vegetables. So although they were grown in a similar or same type of soil, PFAS may transfer to the vegetables based on different kinds of vegetables. So it seems like a leafy vegetable has higher concentration of PFAS, whereas a root vegetable is less concentration of PFAS, and the grains are much lesser. Okay, thank you. Let's go next one. So this is the when states. This is a story of Germany. And the Pat get FOIA information. And as you can see, a lot of blackout parts. But what does this mean? When the states sue for damages by the U.S. military bases stationed in Germany, cases are dismissed when the Air Force claims sovereign immunity, which means no matter how better SOFA relatively compared to the SOFA between US and Japan, Germany's is better, but still they use the sovereign immunity, and they don't treat us any differently than they treat Japanese or Germans, which means that, our military has been treating outside of the country people like nobody, nothing, whereas our own people, United States of America, our nation's people are also treated as nothing because, as you've seen, all the huge contamination level in the previous slides. Let's go next. So you must take care of yourself. Consider getting your blood tested. Blood test is super, super important. I cannot stress enough about the importance of blood test. So for patients with the serum PFAS concentration of 2 ppb to 20 ppb, clinicians should advise to their patients for dyslipidemia, screen for hypertensive disorders of pregnancy at all prenatal visits, and screen for breast cancer, because PFAS goes through blood, placenta, and also after the birth, through the breast milk. So babies they said, well, I also interviewed several doctors and specialists of PFAS in this country, and they all said that the babies were born in this country 100% contaminated with PFAS. So it is very, very important for women and women to be pregnant, or pregnant women to go through this screening and blood tests. And for patients with serum PFAS concentration of 20 ppb or higher, clinicians should conduct thyroid function testing with serum thyroid stimulating hormone. It's called a TSH. Assess for signs and symptoms of kidney cancer for patients over 45 years old, including with urinalysis, and for patients over 15 years of age, assess for signs and symptoms of testicular cancer and ulcerative colitis. And thank you very much. And here's this is a one of the major PowerPoint presentations that we utilize in Japan. And based on where we went, we also added several different slides, but I think this is the basic information we shared with anywhere we went in Japan. And thank you very much for your attention. Can I stop the screen share?
Yes, you can, and thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to go to Marguerite. Thank you, Marguerite.
I'll pull up my presentation. Let's see.
And just before you start, let me say to the audience that after Marguerite, we will have questions and answers. If you would like to raise your hand, I will recognize you and you can direct your question to the presenter that you'd like to answer you. Thank you. Go ahead, Marguerite, sorry.
Oh, that's not a problem. I'm going to start from the beginning. As I know here, I'm with the Vermont Military Poisons Coalition, and I want to tell you a little bit more about the coalition's history. I kind of already told you about the F-35s coming to the Burlington International Airport and the California project that got me in contact with Pat Elder and Nancy Price, and a grant that we wrote to get money to do a tour in California of the military bases. Unfortunately, that was exactly when COVID came, and we had to cut that tour short. But it really highlighted for us that there is a lot that needs to be done in this area. And it really started us on our journey, and here in Vermont on my journey. So as I began to learn more and more about PFAS, I decided it would be good to try and form a multi-state coalition. And that's actually how we began. We began trying to pull together New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, and Massachusetts into one coalition. And all of us were in our own ways, in our different groups, working on the issue of PFAS and environmental contaminants. And we were looking to see if there was ways we could get money for a larger project. Unfortunately, at that time, when we began our work in about 2019, the funding for a larger project like that was not easy to come by. So because I live in Vermont, I looked at just forming a coalition for Vermont and trying to seek funding to get Vermont started. And what we looked at doing was pulling together a wide variety of groups, which is part of our philosophy. We should be all working together. So we pulled together peace groups and different environmental groups, religious groups, social justice groups, and individual activists. And since then, we've even expanded beyond that. We're now working with a landfill group that's concerned about PFAS. We're working with farmers. We're working with organic farmers. And so by pulling together a wide variety of individuals, it's helped us really to put a focus on the three things that we think are important at this point in time. And that's education, media, and advocacy. And I want to say there was just this wonderful article that was about why so many people don't know about PFAS or forever chemicals. And basically, it's because it's a complex topic. There's so much out there that people can be concerned about. And because the effects of PFAS, the health effects, take so long to show up, the connection between the health aspect and what happens to you is too far apart for people to make the connections. So the topic is relatively still unknown. I know when I began my work and I'd say PFAS, people go, what? I'd say, well, maybe forever chemicals, you've heard of that? And they go, what? And these are all well-educated individuals. And I was really shocked how little people knew. And it made me realize that, what is that?
Ellen Schwartz, I think you need to mute yourself maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. It made me realize that we need to work at getting the word out. And a lot of our focus in our coalition has been on education. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. One of the things that Pat and I worked on was developing the military poisons website. And if you haven't looked at it, it is a wonderful resource. Part of our goal with that website was to create a kind of one-stop shop where you could go and you could find all sorts of research tools that you could use to research the health effects of PFAS, to look at where PFAS is and how to find out if it's in your water, in your community, to look at the laws and legislation in your state and what new laws we need to make a difference. So the website, we've been adding lots of new pages. We have a page on PFAS and firefighters. We have pages with free resources. And that's been important to us. I know the media isn't the only answer, but the more people hear the term PFAS, the more we can get information out about it, the better chance we have of reaching and making that effective change, that people start to care more about this topic and want to learn more about it. So I've listed some resources here that you can look at if you're interested to learn more about what we've set up in Vermont. So education is really what we've been focusing on. We have a number of videos, Zoom presentations that are on the website that are really focused on telling you the health effects of PFAS, what PFAS is, where PFAS can be found, what the laws are in your state and how to find out about that, connecting you to water tables and indexes that show you in your state levels of fish and where landfills are and where you can research the data about military bases. So we've really worked hard at doing that. And we post regularly updates. Pat puts all of his wonderful articles on the website. One of the things that we used when we were getting started with PFAS was films. And films were in a very effective way to pull in an audience and get them interested. We showed the film No Defense by Sarah Gammon. No Defense, the military's war on water. I know it focused a lot on water, but it was definitely something that got a lot of attention and got people interested because it was about real people and the real health effects that they had from PFAS. So if you see over here, I know that Rachel already talked about many of these, but decreases in fertility is something we should be really concerned about. Both men and women are experiencing infertility, and we're seeing huge increases in the number of people who need to use fertility clinics. As Rachel mentioned, breast milk, cord milk, almost every American, and I'm sure if we were to test around the world, almost every individual has PFAS in their blood. The question is how much? And a lot of that is dependent on their diet, as we talked about, where they live. If they live near a military base, it's bound to be higher, very likely to be higher. It depends on whether they live near a place that releases PFAS on a regular basis. Just near me is Global Foundries, which just got a big Department of Defense contract to create semiconductors, which use a huge amount of PFAS. And all of the risks here are ones that we should just take so seriously. The other film that we show here, Burned, is a film about firefighters and testicular cancer. Because firefighters who use AFF firefighting foam and who also have PFAS in their turnout gear, what they wear to fight a fire, are now being documented and studied to have very high levels of PFAS. So once again, I would say, depending on your career, where you live, what you eat, that blood testing could be extremely important to you along the way. We've put fact sheets together in different languages, partially because the community I live in is a refugee resettlement community, and we have 28 languages spoken in our school district, and a large population of individuals who do fish and have some subsistence farming, so fishing. And so we've tested the water right outside in my community and found high levels of PFAS, just like you have in Japan. Two very effective things that we've done are a legislative candidate survey, because many candidates running for office don't know anything about PFAS. And so by using a survey, we've been able to educate legislators, and we share with them videos and fact sheets in the survey so we can get their opinions. We don't rate them or decide who's the best candidate, but we use it specifically for education, and it's made a big difference here in Vermont in our ability to get legislation passed and through. It's been very important. And we've also done a firefighter survey, and I hope Morgan is still on. She's attending the program, and these were two of her surveys that we did to educate firefighters about what they're dealing with and where they can get more information. And we've used artists to create posters. So the other way we've been educating is we have been sending out press releases on our water testing results about PFAS in various communities. Here, the shocking thing for us is that PFAS is in a lot of our ski communities that are high in the mountains. Why? Ski wax contains PFAS. So all of those people going down the hill on their skis that have been made nice and slick with ski wax are contaminating the soil. And not only that, but the water in many of our schools and our childcare centers has also been contaminated with PFAS. Some of the higher levels are in our schools. We don't know all the reasons for that, and we've only been testing for 2 years here in Vermont. And these are the public water systems. Nobody is testing private wells here. And that's of a deep concern to us, because we know that many of these private wells are in rural communities, farming communities, and because biosludge is used in the US and spread on farmers' fields, we know for a fact that PFAS is in biosludge, because Maine has been dealing with that. And it's getting into all of the groundwaters in the area and the aquifers. And so wells, which are not being tested, could be highly contaminated. And most individuals who get well tests never test for PFAS, because that's just not a common practice. We use letters to the editor and commentaries. And that's one of our most effective strategies. So during legislative sessions, we get many of our members to write letters, not only to their legislators, but also to the newspapers across the state, trying to educate people about PFAS and to get the word out and about what we need to do to stop PFAS contamination. You know, I would just add that PFAS is also in pesticides. And so those of you who talk about your concerns about food, not just fish, but all food, should know that pesticides have been tested and found to contain high levels of PFAS. So the sad thing is that PFAS is just ubiquitous. It's being added to everything from, you know, women's hygiene products to toilet paper and on. And the need to educate is so strong at this point. We use newspapers, television, radio, and Facebook as well. So these are some of the research tools that we introduce people to. This is a series of tools that help you find things in the US. but I have a similar presentation that's international that shows people who want to find tools for their own countries or their own area around PFAS. And one of the best tools on this page is this new EPA PFAS analytical tool. So it is it's going to eventually, I hope, be a very comprehensive tool where you can look at all forms of PFAS, including where states or communities or businesses are shipping their contaminants, which is often to another poorer community somewhere in the country, so that they can get rid of it and don't have to deal with it. For legislation, Safer States gives you a really, really good overview of what your state's legislation is around PFAS, and gives you an even better sense of what you need to do to regulate PFAS. Toxicology disease, this is a PFAS tox database that's wonderful in connecting studies from around the world with various types of PFAS in that class of chemicals. And, you know, we have an industrial map, a water map, and a military map, and all of those can help you find information about PFAS. So our advocacy work has been one of our more frustrating areas, but we have tried some unique strategies. The picture on the left is us at Montpelier in Vermont. The person in the middle is wearing an inflatable penis costume that says PFAS is linked to testicular cancer. And we actually took this to the State House, and it really helped us draw attention and get people talking about the issue, because otherwise their eyes just glaze over and they really do not pay attention or have much interest in it. And so we've had to use some more outrageous strategies, nothing violent, but ways that we can draw attention to it and hopefully get people to start thinking about you know, this issue and how it could affect them. We collaborate extensively with other groups, and we do hold events at the Capitol and testify in terms of legislation. We've worked really hard on our messaging. You probably noticed some of the posters. We hired artists in Vermont to help us put together sample posters that we think will help us educate people, and we're putting them up in restaurants, grocery stores, shops, you name it. Anywhere they'll put it up, we're putting them up. Bars are a good place here. They put them in the bathroom on the stall door, so you have to read it. And we've worked really hard at developing messages that we think will intrigue people enough to want to learn more. One of my favorites is PFAS contamination without our consent. I kind of like, don't spike my drink with PFAS. No toxin should last forever. Here today, here forever. Ban PFAS. So some of these messages are helping us draw attention to the topic as well. And finally, I just want to offer this because this is what I think we're really strong at. We will give any group all of our stuff. If you want our press releases, if you want the fact sheets that we develop, or the posters, they're all on our website, and you can actually download them, change them, and use them yourself. If you want the surveys that we did and the accompanying emails, if you want any of the PowerPoints that we have put together, you can take the PowerPoint and do it in your area. Any way that we can help get the word out and get people involved in educating around PFAS, we're willing to do and make available to you anywhere in the country or the world. So I guess I would say my message is we need to educate as much as we can. We need to get people motivated and involved, and we need to get them to do what they can do at the local level so that they feel that they can make a change in their own life and that they can make a change in their community. something as simple as saying, I don't want my tax dollars in my city to be used to spend on anything that has PFAS in it. And those are the sorts of things that we're advocating for here. So I'll turn it back to Nancy, because I know we want to leave a lot of time for questions, and welcome any of you to contact me at the address here, pfasinfo@wilpfus.org.
Marguerite, thank you so much.
I'll
The project in Vermont is such an example of careful and systematic and inclusive organizing at the grassroots level to not only educate, but create a movement so that you can impact the state legislature as well as the general public. And I thank you very much for the material that you and Pat have now, and your website consultant have been putting up on the militarypoisons.org website. If you'd like to raise your hand by, you need to go to more at the bottom of the webinar and hit reactions, I believe, and raise your hand.
Yeah, and if it's not on reactions, then it'll be a separate option in that group of stuff under more. I think Zoom has broken it out, so raise hand is a individual standalone tool.
Okay, and if that is not clear for you, you can just raise your hand to me and I will recognize you. Please direct your question to one of the presenters. Zarina, and then I'll call on Hisai. Zarina, if you would unmute yourself.
I may have to do this.
Okay.
Well,
Serena
can unmute now. I'm going to try myself.
Can you hear me?
Good. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, this was an incredible presentation. I really appreciate all your inputs. And I think it was through WILF that I got this notification. So this is great. Thank God WILF has put this together. My big thing that I haven't heard you all mention is artificial turfs. We had a huge problem in our town where they're going to put artificial turfs. Well, they already have it at high school, but then they're going to put it several other areas, and we all said no way. And that was really good because we stopped that, and now everybody's involved in learning more about PFAS. Also, I was wondering, what about the countries that don't have Air Force bases? Is that something that they're safe? And what are the ocean contents of this, and what are alternatives to PFAS if they are, and if there's anything safe out there?
And I can address a couple of things, and then
okay, Marguerite, and then we'll go to Pat to answer. Marguerite. Yeah.
Here in Vermont, S-25, which is a bill that passed the Senate here in Vermont unanimously, includes turf, artificial turf. And that's because, we've been recognizing for a while now, like I said, PFAS is in everything. It's just ubiquitous. So, the new bill that we're looking at passing will include artificial turf. It won't get rid of artificial turf that already exists. That'll be grandfathered in. But at least it's beginning to recognize that artificial turf, especially professional players who play on it continuously, are apt to get things like brain cancer, etc. And we need to really take that seriously, since so many of our young people are on artificial turf and play in their schools and their yards, etc. ChemSec, which is a national organization, has a wonderful tool for alternatives to PFAS and other toxic chemicals. And the truth is, there are alternatives. There's alternatives that don't contain PFAS for firefighting foam and for many, many things. And the other real truth is that we need to start adjusting, and we need to do a paradigm shift. Maybe we can't always have the perfect raincoat that resists everything and the pan that is non-stick. We need to have to scrub it a little. I'm sorry, folks, but we can't have everything be convenient because we're killing ourselves and we're using chemicals to do it. And we need to be honest about that. We need to consume less, and we need to shop for things that are PFAS free.
Right.
Yeah, Pat, you have an answer to Zarina, and then
Certainly. Thanks for the question, Zarina. It's brilliant. As far as the turf is concerned, we have Kathleen Michaels on the call with us, and she's already put some questions in the chat. I don't know if Kathleen wants to address everybody right now, but if you would like to, Kathleen, you could have the floor.
I don't want to take up too much time, but I just, if anyone is interested in the issue, I put in the Swedish study that shows the fluorine, total fluorine in artificial turf, and raises the the concerns about that. There have been other studies as well, but that's the most recent one. But there have been other places where PFAS has been shown to leach out of artificial turf and into groundwater. And so the concern is about, especially where people are on wells, that it leaches into their wells. And then of course, you're stuck with, you no longer have a well that's usable. So there are a lot of people across the country working on artificial turf, and thank you, Marguerite, for all that you're doing that up there. I mean, California's just actually passed a bill banning PFAS in artificial turf, and unfortunately, Governor Newsom vetoed it. But it actually wasn't. He actually vetoed it for a good reason. People who worked on the bill weren't actually happy with it because there was no regulatory path or authority. It was basically toothless. So he said he actually supported it and he'd like to see a better bill. So they're going to work on that. So yeah, PFAS made synthetic turf carpeting, synthetic carpeting, not just artificial turf, not just synthetic turf, possible because the fibers, when they're extruded from the machinery, they're extruded hot and they stick to the machinery. So it just wasn't possible to make synthetic carpets on a large scale until they started adding PFAS. And just like a lot of things with PFAS, it was magic. And for these companies, it was magic. All of a sudden, they could create these enormous carpets, at will, and weave these, extrude these fibers and weave them into the carpet backings, which probably also contain PFAS. So anyway, it's anywhere, any of you who are paying attention, part of the problem is a lot of communities don't pay much attention because the people who are being exposed to the carpets, the heat, the toxins, and everything else are usually children and athletes. So a lot of people aren't even aware that they're there. They may have it practically in their backyard and they're not aware of it. So again, it's an education issue, like everybody was talking about with PFAS itself. On synthetic turf as there's so many problems with synthetic turf. PFAS is just one. So, and I can send out a list of references and resources if people would like to follow up. And Beyond Plastics is another group that's working on this issue.
Thanks.
Thank you very much,
Out of
Kathleen.
Bennington, yeah.
Yeah. Pat, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, Zarina had a two-part question. The second part of Zarina's question had to do with, well, what about communities that don't have Air Force bases? And, we started this WILPF and military poisons. Military poisons, the other half of the problem. At the time, no one was paying attention to the PFAS contamination caused by the military. There's a little bit more attention on the military now, and I think partly from our work. But in my community, we have a little bit further up the road, CHIP, microchip manufacturers. We also have manufacturers of PTFE piping, that is pipes that use Teflon. And so there are lots of industrial sites where PFAS is used, and the state enforcement here in Maryland is very lax. And so those chemicals are allowed to escape into the Chesapeake watershed. So it's not just about the military. That's simply provided a wonderful segue for me, because I've been, involved in countering the military, every aspect of it for 50 years, and this seemed to be a wonderful segue. So, but I hope that helps, Zarina.
Thank you. I saw William Peel's hand up, and then we'll go to a telephone, which is 11415, and then dots 800 number. So, William?
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yes,
me
we
okay?
can. Yes, we can.
Yes. Oh, by the way, Pat, I was the fellow driving the van that was chased out of the neighborhood at Chesapeake Beach.
Yeah, I know, I
been chased
remember
before
quite
or after.
well.
And the sad thing about it is, the second part is, shortly after that, my wife Cindy and I were attending a gathering at Prince Frederick, and Senator Mike Miller, the longest serving state senator in the history of this country, was there. And at that time, he was suffering with cancer. And it turns out that Mike just lived a short distance from that facility along the Chesapeake Bay. And we presented him with articles about Pax River, about Chesapeake Beach, and about Fort Meade having PFAS contamination. Of course, that was right next door to him. And the last thing he said to us was that, well, that's maybe how he got the cancer he had and has subsequently died from him. So there you go. We talked with the highest ranking public servant in the state of Maryland history and the country, presented him with the information. He had cancer and he subsequently died. I have a question, though, that have any studies been done, and I've read some about this, that PFAS can cause sex changes in fish. And my question is, similar studies have maybe been done. I can't understand the language in some of the articles. It's very scientific kind of talk, but those chemicals, perhaps with children, are causing changes in sex in puberty age children as they're growing up. I think there's cancer is, I think people think it's an old person's disease. When you start talking about young people being impacted perhaps by this, and I don't know, I'm just asking the question, raising the issue that maybe there is another a thing to add to the list of things that PFAS can cause. I'm just throwing that out. And I know, Pat, you've done a lot of studies and reading and so forth. Have you ever heard of this?
Thanks, Bill. And hello to Cindy. And I do remember that day we were flyering in a neighborhood, and we had just little flyers that said, the Navy is going to have a meeting in the next week, and there have been tremendous releases of PFAS in the soil around your house. And we were physically chased off of out of a neighborhood. And all of the flyers that we were putting on people's doors were removed and destroyed. Oh boy, that's the reaction we got in rural Maryland, right? So I remember that day well. But as far as the sex change thing, I don't know. I don't know if anyone else here can add to that, but if you see anything, I would love to see an article about that. Got me, buddy. I mean, it's an evolving science for sure, and I don't know half of it.
I do know that there have been some recent studies that show that mothers with high levels of PFAS, their baby boys, for example, might have penises that are 10% smaller than normal, and that baby girls, will be born and have menstrual cycles that start much, much later. We do have a couple people in our coalition who are interested in that topic and wondering if there are some connections between hormonal endocrine issues and all of this. The PFAS tox database has a number of studies that you can look through from around the world. And there's a group of pediatric endocrinologists who are studying PFAS in the Midwest. I think I can come up with the email of the woman I heard speak, because she was talking about the fact that different PFAS actually affect different organs in the human body. And I found that fascinating, which might explain why it's linked to so many different diseases and illnesses and conditions. It depends upon the PFAS, the particular one in the whole class.
This is Nancy. I'd like to respond to that question because there's a lot of writing on atrazine, which shows this kind of impact on the frog population. Those studies were by a professor at University of California, Berkeley. He was written up in the New Yorker magazine when the company that makes atrazine was after him and accusing him of all sorts of nonsense, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, atrazine, I think, is very well demonstrated to have that impact on frogs. And let's see, let's go to any other question. I don't see a hand up at the moment.
1415.
Is that you, William? 1415?
Hi, I'm
No.
on the telephone and I was next. My
Yes,
name is
please.
also Nancy. Hi. Thanks for this important conversation about all these things I've been following for years as well. I was following synthetic turf over 15 years ago when it first appeared at our school playgrounds in Northern California. Of course, it was no big deal. But I had a couple of questions. One about the, I was in Japan before the pandemic, and I'm also very concerned about the plastics. And I just was horrified at the amount of plastics that were in all the grocery stores and people were consuming. Now, I know they have a very detailed recycling program where they incinerate the plastics.
Yep.
And this is even of more concern because in California, there is talk of starting to incinerate the plastics because that's a better way to go. And all the stuff I have heard is that it's really, really terrible stuff. Also on the endocrine issue, and endocrine disruptors is what I was fighting when I was fighting the toxic turf. There was an article probably in the Rolling Stone 20 years ago about men who were getting a bizarre form of cancer who were actually working with vats of plastic somewhere, in the South where else is everything unregulated. And that might be worth looking up, as well as there was one more other thing that you guys were talking about, the toxic, well, I'll remember that. Anyhow, I was curious about if the gal from Japan has anything to say about, is there any other, I happen to have relatives over in Japan through marriage, so I don't speak Japanese, but I know that they believe that everything is all safe and everything like that, and I'd just like to have a real view of how the process is done in Japan, and does it really get rid of the air pollution and everything else that these PFAS are winding up spewing up into our airs and other places. Thank you.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I come away with the same questions regarding Japanese society. It's an amazingly modern and efficient society, but there sure is a lot of plastic waste. And I did read through some of the incineration facilities and how hot they managed to get the incinerators. And it's certainly not my area of expertise, but I certainly question, the methodology. I don't know really if the incinerators get hot enough, if this is the way to go. Certainly they don't get hot enough, most municipal incinerators, to completely destroy the PFAS. But we do have a few Japanese experts on the call. If you want to take a shot, heck, or maybe Rachel, you could interpret. But that's it's out of my league, right?
Okay. Well, I can take over a little bit. When it comes to the garbage, plastic garbage in Japan, the amount is enormous, and also they kind of depending on plastics when it comes to incinerating process, because plastic, when it's burned, it harness a lot higher temperature, which helps incinerate more with less fuel. So I think that's one of the several reasons for burning plastic. That's add more energy to it, and also reduce the amount of garbage. And knowing how humid that country is, plastic wrapping everything, even individual wrapping, is very, very ubiquitous anywhere. But they did not, for sure, they didn't have enough information of PFAS. Okay, and just in general picture, in this digitalized information world, if you put every single digitalized information in one big 100% pie chart, what people can research on internet is only 2.4 to 4%. Okay, whereas the English information is available in a ballpark of 56%. Okay, and the rest are many European languages. But anyway, if you speak French, Spanish, whatever those alphabetic use Western language, it is very important to. It is very easy to consult information in English, whereas the Japanese letters are completely different from any of them. So when it comes to availability of information, it's extremely limited. So think about that too. And when it comes, that's why we really need to educate people of Japan with PFAS more so. And I think what Pat has been doing the last several months is extremely important, together with a lot of collaboration with the local academia, like Professor Kunitoshi Sakurai here, and also Professor Harada and Koizumi, and also other grassroots movement. That's what the Code Pink Osaka has been doing. Here we have Hisae and Ryoko. Maybe they have some words to this issue. Hisae-san, りょうこさん、桜井先生、何かご意見があったら英語で通訳しますのでどうぞ。はい、じゃあ桜井先生。So Professor Sakurai has something to say.
Okay. First of all, I am very grateful for the visit of Pat-san, Rachel-san, and Veterans for Peace team to Japan and Okinawa. Your visit raised our awareness. So now Japanese people are very, very concerned with PFAS problem. But speaking of incineration, Japan depends very much on incineration of garbage, because available land for land filling is very, very limited in Japan. And in the case of incineration, the volume will decrease to 5% of original volume. That is the reason why Japanese local governments depend so much on incineration. And you use the temperature is about 900 degrees Celsius. It is enough to burn almost all things, but now we are very aware of the problem of PFAS. PFAS cannot be burnt with this temperature of 900 degrees Celsius. So we have to consider this issue. Yeah, that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Arigato.
Okay, I think Hisae has something to say too. She's raising her hand,
Yes,
physically raising her hand. Hisae-san,
yes.
please unmute yourself.
Unmute. Yes, thank you.
Hisae-san, mute. Thank you. どうぞ。Hisae-san, 聞こえますか? お声が聞こえませんが。久江さんお声が聞こえません
Maybe she needs to unmute.
She did unmute, but still we can't hear her.
But somebody, your other Japanese colleague,
Okay,
りょうこさん、
何か一言いかがですか
she may need to increase the sound on her.
Okay.
He's muted.
Well, she keeps going in and out. of mute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
りょうこさん、ちょっとマイクの近くでもっと大きな声でどうぞ。
Hmm.
ベテランズ・フォー・ピースの今年の、ツアーで
Turn up the volume.
日本の
I think she needs to turn up the volume of her.
Well, her volume is always low for some reason. So let me
Oh,
try to
that-
concentrate on her what she said in Japanese. I will translate in English, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
PFAS のことを講演する機会があったので、今までほとんど知らなかったことが知らされて、みんなが結構びっくりしてるというか、ショックを受けてるというか、PFAS がこんなに身近にあるということにショックを受けてるっていうのを講演会の感想で聞きました。だからこれからもっといろいろ知らせていく必要があるなと思ってます。
Thank you very much. So she was one of the organizers of our events in Kyoto venue, and they collected questionnaires from participants, and many of them said that the event was very informative, and they realized that how less they knew about PFAS, and the information that they received from the event was enormous, and they must keep studying. They must keep studying about this issue, and it would be great if you can provide us more information on PFAS. Thank you.
So we have been on this webinar for an hour and a half. Perhaps we could have a few more questions and then close out. Let's see, Ed, you spoke earlier and William did. Would anyone who has not spoken like to speak up for the moment? I see Morgan.
I did not have a question before, actually.
Oh, yes, is that who, Ed?
No, William. Oh,
That's William. Okay.
This is it.
Let's just go to Morgan quickly, and then I'll come back to you, William and Ed. Morgan?
Hi, I just had a very quick question. I'm just wondering, in Vermont, I thought of the idea that maybe we might want to get some of the vegetables from the different farms tested. And that I just wondered where you test solid food or other things, because I know where you test water, but where can you take foods and things? And do people think that would be a good strategy to gather that information, publish it anonymously on average, and see what happens?
Marguerite, would you like to answer that?
Well, I just got back from a farm to plate conference that was here in Vermont, and I'm presenting on PFAS and pesticides because we were linking the two together, kind of double your poison idea. And we only had, at this very large conference, 5 people attend. There's a real fear amongst farmers, especially organic farmers, to have tests done and the results published, because they're afraid, especially if they're an organic farmer, that they'll be closed down and they'll lose their livelihood. Where to get these things tested is a really good question, Morgan. We did send out information to a lot of websites that here in Vermont that were farmers with EPA funding to test farm soil for PFAS. And there was a lot of resistance to that. There's a lot of fear that what they're going to discover is not going to be good. I am not sure where to test fruits and vegetables. Pat, do you know? Go ahead.
I would, make a call to Eurofins in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And because they seem to have an entrepreneurial spirit about these things, and they have agreed to test in different environmental media that you might not expect. And maybe Ed Freeman can add to that. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
Real good question.
So let me just go to Rachel for a minute. Rachel?
Yes, I just wanted to mention the advice that I received from Mr. Douglas Lummis in Okinawa, who is one of the mentors and most respected person among veterans for peace. He came to our event and suggested that we should solicit military wives, okay, who have little children or being pregnant or being to be a mother, so that they go to blood testing, and their husbands are inside the military bases and always heavily exposed to PFAS. So if they find something among themselves, within the babies or wives or the children, that will really urge them to go receiving blood tests. And boy, we have military personnel all across the world in 800 US military bases, and they are constantly being exposed to all different types of PFAS through their job. And if we could get the results, I think we can create a huge wave of banning PFAS. Thank you very much.
Thank you. William and then Ed. And then I think we'll close out for the evening. Come back to me for a comment and then close out for the evening. Thank you. William?
Thank you. This is Cindy. We were both on.
Oh,
From your studies and testing that's been done, and just your knowing the lifestyles of fish and seafood better than I do, are there any recommended safer than other types of fish based on studies that have been done and how fish and all seafood lives? And secondly, kind of going along with some of these other questions, where would you go if I went to my doctor and said, oh, by the way, can I get a test for PFAS? Would they do it, or do you have to have some specific reason or problem that that's asked for? And the same with, where would you go here in Maryland to get seafood tested? And I think that the reason people think of it in water and it takes a while to realize it's also in seafood is because it took me a while to make that connection, that it's going to bioaccumulate in animals that live in water. And I think that we need to get more information out there somehow on what's in seafood. And I know here in Maryland, where it's extremely popular and it's a lot of people's livelihood, it's extremely difficult. So thank you.
thank you very much. Ed?
Well,
Oh, excuse me.
you
Pat.
want me to take a shot at Cindy?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, Cindy, in terms of testing for the fish, I would try Eurofins in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And, I have seen studies that look at different types of PFAS and where these compounds congregate in water channels, in the levels of water, in the depths of water, and then individual fish and where they travel in waters. And it's fantastically complex. But send me an email, Cindy, and I can look back and see what I have in terms of studies. There are a few things out there. I think you're onto something really important, and I'm right at the edge of understanding the science.
Thanks.
Do you want to put your email, Pat, in the chat?
Sure.
Ed? Hello, Ed.
Yeah, I'm just
Thank
on
you.
the
Good.
so
Yeah.
I just want to say a couple of things. One, I was really surprised at the conversation about incinerating plastic. And while this is a PFAS call, I suspect many of us have been working on these issues for a long time. And pretty much, to my knowledge, any burning of plastic creates dioxins, as well as other issues. So let's not forget about the other contaminants as well, as we maybe focus our attention today on PFAS chemicals. Dioxin, as many of you know, is considered the most toxic chemical in the world. Of course, it depends on which congener. And in terms of some testing, Alpha Analytics does tissue testing. Eurofins offers probably the most comprehensive suite of PFAS species they can analyze for. Last I checked, it was like 75, 80 different kinds. Cyclopure, as many of you know, with water looks at 55. Alpha can do about 50 or 40 something. And Eurofins will do tissue testing as well. Battelle does tissue testing. We didn't have good luck with Battelle. I wouldn't recommend them, but they have done muscle testing in Maine. So I don't know actually where you get your blood tested. I know the was it the Environmental Working Group, I think, did a bunch of that. Pat, you might know offhand. But
Yeah, I should have mentioned that to Cindy. First of all, try your own primary care physician, and have your doctor write an order, and then go to the lab that you would normally have your blood work done, and see if they'll do it for you through your health insurance. I think you get a fingerprint test done. I think it's TM something or another through Eurofins, and it's still under $300, I believe. But yeah, it's still an evolving science for sure.
thank you, Pat.
Yeah.
So I would just like to thank everyone, our presenters and our participants for, first of all, participating, and second of all, staying on for a fairly long webinar, but an interesting topic that we must tackle and talk to our friends, our colleagues, work within our organizations. If any of you saw the movie Dark Waters, you'll remember at the end, the lawyer looks up and says, "Who knew?" after the story of the small community there was revealed in the movie to have been contaminated by DuPont with PFAS laden water, and the cows of one of the farmers featured were dying. I think the question is, who knew, when did they know it, and what did they do? I think part of Marguerite's emphasis on the diseases is very important, because we do know there's a great deal of childhood cancer. There's an increase in breast cancer, and there are other of those diseases that are so important to know about and also focus on. I've had the opportunity to speak with doctors who are involved in breast cancer. I told them about PFAS, and none of them knew. So I think it's time to create a small pamphlet or a handout to go to primary care physicians and doctors involved in breast cancer treatment. I would like to say that maybe we'll have a follow-up in a couple of months. And also the WILPF, Women's International for Peace and Freedom US, will have their 2024 Congress at the end of May 30 to June 2nd in Minneapolis. The theme of this Congress is water at the front lines of peace. So you can imagine that you can know that we will have a PFAS panel. And Minnesota is a very interesting state. They're quite active in educating and mobilizing around PFAS. So I hope that we'll send out a notice to all of you who were on this webinar about that Congress. In addition to which, if you go to militarypoisons.org, you can click on donate. Any funds that you would donate will go to help Pat with his project and testing and investigating his his analyses and publishing on militarypoisons.org, and also add to the budget of funding for the budget of Marguerite and our consultant who works on the website, and some other work she's doing on getting legislation passed in this session of the Vermont legislature. So I thank you very much, and hope you've had.
Sneak in one question. Sorry, when might a recording be available of this, which is really nice presentation?
Yes. Cheryl? I mean, Ellen, sorry, Ellen.
Ellen, that's who you need, yes. Well, the recording will be available on the Zoom cloud within about an hour probably. But we have to upload it to our YouTube channel. And, you know, I'm not usually the one who does it, but the other Ellen Thomas is usually pretty quick about it. So we'll see. It should be within a day or two.
Great, thank you. I thought, as we started, I thought of several people who didn't know about it. I'd like to share it with, so thank you.
Yes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
also, Ellen, would you share the copy of the chat for me and send it to me?
Oh, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank
So
you.
everyone, thank you so much. And we'll see you again in the early spring for a catch up. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Good evening.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.